Hello there, and you are there, and I am here. This is Killin Time, episode 20. 8 months now of you guys putting up with my terrible chat, so thank you very much for that. But I thought we'd kind of end the year. Well, you never know, actually. Some people might be ending the year watching this, some people might be starting the next year. So, regardless, I hope you have a good Hogmanay, or you had a good Hogmanay. But a couple of subjects that I want to cover before we really get into the kind of meat of the transcripts of the actual trial itself. So cover one today, one coming up, which I'll tease at the end of the video, so you can stick around for that. So today I want to discuss confessions. The belief by a lot of Luke's army, things touted by Scott Forbes and Sandra Lean in terms of other suspects confessing. So I'm going to do something we don't do very regularly, actually, when it comes to clips. Let's watch a little clip of Luke's mum, Corrine Mitchell, on the James English podcast to start us off.
And is there any other signs of a retrial?
We're hoping so, because since he's been in, we've had new evidence. We've had a confession, and we've had a positive ID of someone seen behind Jodi, and it's the same person who confessed. And so if the police or the courts can't see that as a witness, then...
Has that ever been put forward to the police or
No,
the courts?
No. As I say, it's only come to light in the last few years.
So there's a confession from somebody who's actually did it?
Yes.
So in Corrine Mitchell's words there, they have a confession and a positive sighting that is the same person. Now, without kind of beating around the bush, it's hinting here, but the reality is she is pointing the finger at Jodi Jones' big brother, Joseph Jones, who is Scott Forbes' number one suspect. That's not kind of speculation on my part. That's, the Luke's army do share this belief that Joseph Jones was the person that confessed, and of course you kind of take it from what Corinne's saying there. It's the same person that was sighted behind Jodi Jones walking towards Ronsdyke Path, which again they put as Joseph Jones. But I mean, well, don't take my word for it, take Scott Forbes' word for it, also on the James English podcast.
And what about the confession? Did somebody walk into the cop shop and give a confession?
Allegedly, right? I never put that in my book, and people ask me that. Allegedly, Joseph Jones walked into Dalkey police station and gave a confession about how he killed Jodi. But because he was psychotic at the time, they never took it serious. But if Joseph Jones walked in the morning straight and gave that confession, it would chase him, James. The case is closed. You hear me?
Why have they never gave a retrial?
Yeah, that's something that we're trying.
There is, in Mr. Forbes' words, allegedly Joseph Jones had went in and confessed to the murder of his little sister. Mr. Forbes, just for people who aren't familiar with Scottish lingo, when he does say that if Joseph was to admit it today, he'd be chased, what he means by that is essentially the police would tell him to leave because they have their guilty man and they don't want to do any more investigation, which I do not believe for a second would be the case. But it does make for a good story from Mr. Forbes, because it's this idea that no one's want to listen anymore, which it's a ridiculous idea to think that if something, so what's probably like ground shifting in terms of evidence or something was to come to light, that people would just all ignore it. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these people, in these positions nowadays, we get a lot of credibility and a lot of good press by correcting the errors of old. However, I get sidetracked with that one. So to kind of compare these two, we really have this idea, not said in Kareen's own words, but that, this, because of course Scott Forbes would put Joseph Jones as the person that was seen following Jodi at the time. So putting those two together, obviously we can see that the focus is on Joseph Jones in terms of being the confessor. However, this is where it gets a little bit confusing. So, if we take a clip from an older podcast with Jibber Jabber, I don't know the two gentlemen's name, and I won't comment too much, but let's have a look at what Sandra Lean had to say on the Jibber Jabber podcast after the airing of Murder in a Small Town.
Yeah. Just on the subject of that, there was apparently a confession that was made by a person that this person committed the offence. Now, I won't mention who it is, any names in the comment section. Just please don't. If you think it's a good idea, don't say anything. But just on the subject of that confession, what happened there, and where did the confession go?
The confession, or the information about the confession, was sent to one of Luke's legal teams after the first appeal, and it kind of never went anywhere. We kept trying to push it, and it was just never followed up. Now, before anybody, and I know people aren't going to speculate, and that's thank you. But what I will say, and I will say absolutely 100%, this alleged confession is not anybody that the general public would know is connected to the case. Okay? Not anybody that the general public could even guess at.
Right.
So
okay.
I just want to point that out, because I know people are speculating that it's people that they've already heard about. It is not.
Okay.
So, a little aside here, just kind of whilst we're here, how can these stories not make sense and not match up with each other when Sandra Lean is the person that fact checks Scott's book? They're in contact about the case itself. They've discussed it, they've looked through papers together, but the two of them seem to have different confessions here. Now I'm going to cover one other thing actually, but we'll get to that. But let's look at this as a whole. So Kareen Mitchell kind of hints that it's the same person that was seen following Jodi that confessed. Now, Scott Forbes flat out comes out and says allegedly this was Joseph Jones, and he also says that Joseph Jones was the last person seen following Jodi on several podcasts. I don't think I need to show any clips about that. If you want, I can really go back. I'll bring all the receipts if you want. But that's who Scott Forbes places behind Jodi Jones. So, then we get to Sandra Mitchell. Sandra Lean. Oh my God, I'm getting all the names confused. Sandra Lean. Who, which might as well be, to be fair. She then says that the confession itself is from someone who is not connected to the case, and the people who have been, keeping up and paying attention with their updates haven't heard about this person. It was kind of, I think, I wasn't looking at the live chat there, but I do think one of the hosts there was kind of also saying, with people speculating, and I'm guessing it's the same name that they were speculating in the chat as well, Joseph Jones. But Sandra does state 100% that this person was not connected with the case. So, is Scott lying? Is Scott embellishing? Is Scott listening to rumours and then spreading it? Or are these two people not on the same page? That's a good question, and one that we should probably cover towards the end as well. But these things don't match. They don't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I wish there was sense. Where did all this sense go?
Reality is that it's all on the fly in terms of controversy. Scott doesn't really know what he's going to say when he goes in there. If you watch a lot of the podcasts with James English, he does state, what, I'm just going to say it. Because in reality, there's not an answer to the question. It's more his speculation, opinion, and just downright lies. Now, we've covered a lot of the lies on this channel. Other people are covering some of the lies in terms of what's been said in the transcripts and how they don't match. And again, that's not me. That's people who were on side in terms of Sandra Lean and have discovered that they've been lied to for years. And what's the answer to that? Now suddenly they're all trolls as well. I don't mean to go on a rant and get sidetracked about that, but it's an absolutely terrible defence of all this, because that's what this comes down to. Even pointing out this here, suddenly I'm a troll because I find small inconsistencies. This isn't a small inconsistency. This is 3 people telling 2 different stories. The reality is, though, there is no confession as such, but they tout this so that other people believe it. Well, is there a confession? Because this story does take one more turn. It has one more little wrinkle in it. And again, it comes from Miss Lean. So remember the clip we saw there, she does state that the person that was was not connected to the case in any way, shape or form beforehand, but they did confess to the act itself. So there must have been some discussion on the pages on Facebook, the Luke Mitchell, Luke's Army's pages. So Sandra Lean had to go in a little bit more detail and discuss this with the guys. So let's have a look at the post and we'll slap it up on screen and let's read this and see if we can make any more sense of these 3 different people telling 2 different stories. I'll just read this in full verbatim because we need to keep this in context. So from Sandra Lean, just so we're all clear, there are 2 confessions. So we've got 2 now in this discussion. The first, which is supported in part by a letter to Luke's legal team many years ago, is from a man who was incarcerated at the time Luke's trial began back in 2004. There was no claim whatsoever that this man had any connection with Jodi's family other than the alleged confession he made in prison on the day Luke's trial began. This is the man who it was later confirmed was detained in a psychiatric unit. I imagine, of course, if we were to kind of pin that one, that would be the confession that Sandra Lean was talking about in Jibber Jabber, by the sounds of it, not connected with the family. So that would make sense. We can kind of, place that there. However, this post does go on. It does go on. Bit like myself. The second claimed confession has never been supported by any evidence. Although there was a report of another confession, I've never received a single piece of supporting information, credible or otherwise, to suggest there was any weight to that alleged confession, and have always said the report of the alleged confession should never be given weight unless there was something to support it. To this day, there is nothing. Speculating that this second confession even existed, far less who it might have been. Who might have been the confessor, is, with all respect, a return to early 2000s media nonsense. Now, I mean, in reality, that I do love reading these kind of things from Ms. Lean. We've got to be better than them. We've got to be better than them. Whilst high-fiving the members of Luke's army that share photos of innocent people. Reality is that's just misdirection by Miss Lean. She constantly says, we shouldn't be speculating, and then goes on to speculate and blame people. The video she done about Janine Jones' testimony, where she attacks Janine Jones and Alice Walker, and their morality, so to speak. So she does it all the time. So she needs to cut that out. But anyway, getting back to the point, so we've got two confessions now. Where did those come from? Now we can, as I say, put the first confession down to what Ms. Lean's talking about and jibber jabber perhaps there. And maybe we could put the second confession, well, where else do we put that? We kind of have to put that on the Joseph Jones aspect, don't we? Because obviously he wasn't in prison at the time of the trial, so that's a different person. So, second confession, we have to really say that is that the one that Scott Forbes is talking about, the one that Corinne Mitchell hints at but doesn't say. Well, Ms. Lean in her own words says there is no evidence to back that up. She will not give it weight. So that's strange that both the experts and I say experts, honestly, big quotation marks, experts, why don't they agree on that? It's strange. To suggest there's any weight to the alleged confession, she's never suggested. So, so she's never received a single piece of supporting information, credible or otherwise. Why does then Scott and Corinne decide that it's a definite? So these guys are supposed to be all going towards one goal. It's supposed to be a part of one team. It doesn't seem to be the case. Let's cover a wee bit of that at the end. Just a wee bit. But for that, can we just make this a little quick one and wrap that one up here? This confession story is nonsense. The touting of it does sound good. It makes it sound like these guys have got some kind of, vindication, but you don't get the gift, guys. You don't get that little clip because you've not got it. At the end of the day, your experts don't agree on where this confession comes from, or the validity of one, or any. These guys should be agreeing, shouldn't they? Shouldn't they? Scott should know that is the psychiatric unit ex-prisoner that confessed. He should not be putting Joseph Jones' name in there. So, we give him the out. Mr. Forbes, did you make a mistake by not properly looking into who had confessed and what the confession actually related to? Or did you intentionally lie so that it made you look like you knew what you were talking about? Pick one. I know he won't, because at the end of the day, Mr. Forbes has been very, very active on social media over the past little while. So let's wrap this up. Let's cover a wee bit of, as I say, that, and let's make this a short video, because guys, it's the end of the year. So, to kind of, just a quick aside before we wrap everything up and do our little couple of questions to yourselves. Oh, I'm tease the next subject. It's really just a thing that's happened over the last, since episode 18, I think so, where we saw a kind of split in Luke's army. Now, for the last 8 months, I've seen what I call a lack of professionalism from experts, and again, I use big air quotes when it comes to that. The lack of professionalism in terms of how they behave. So, I mean, I could list a lot of them here, really, to be honest, when it comes to Scott Forbes, especially. Just off the top of my head, naming alleged sexual abuse victims who are supposed to have lifelong anonymity, which is against the law. Professing to show people on podcast hosts and others private medical records which he discusses as well, which weren't used as part of court evidence, which again is against the law. The threats on YouTube and whatnot, and the kind of derogatory way that he speaks to a lot of people, that's not so much against. I mean, I suppose there's probably some malicious communications in there at some point, but I don't have those to hand. They're not against the law as such, but definitely for what's supposed to be a legal professional, that's not the way to act. And another case which happened over the last couple of days, where Mr. Forbes decided to try and dox people online, which we all should know as well is against the law and very frowned upon. But Mr. Forbes has been lashing out.
Stop it. Get some help.
So let's look at some of the reasons as to why or how and what's been said about it. And then we'll just wrap this all up. So looking at the a couple of posts that have been going up over the last little while, and some chatter that's been going on. During one of the last updates, we spoke about the kind of split in terms of Luke's army, with people discovering that Sandra Lean had been lying to them for a number of years. So, with all this, there seems to be, as I say, the kind of the Lord of the Flies we compared it to, and the infighting really ramped up. With, just to put a little context on it, Mr. Forbes had actually said that he was going to name, like we spoke about, doxing people before, and a couple of names came up. I'll be honest, I've no idea how many people are involved in the split, so to speak, if it's the two named, or 4 or 6 or 8 or 20. I've no idea how many. Can't put a figure on that, but as I say, the two names seem to be a focus. So they'll bring them up in this little chat. What I want to do is not focus on the infighting itself, but a couple of other things that are spoken about during the conversation by Mr. Forbes. So looking at the first text, all because, so I'll put this in context. I believe they're talking about one specific person, Sharon. So, all because she isn't getting the attention she craves from LM, meaning Luke Mitchell. Her and Sandra fighting is like Mrs. and Mistress in a hateful, jealous spat. Killin Mitchell is like that with Sandra also. They are destroying Luke Mitchell's chance of justice, in my opinion. Which, on the face of it, seems, like he's outing somebody for a craving attention from Luke Mitchell themselves, but it's the other part that you really want to focus on. Now, Sandra being a part of the issue, Killin Mitchell being a part of the issue, really, that's what we can take. They are destroying Luke Mitchell's chance of justice, in my opinion, with infighting. Now, it's a bit vague, it's a bit strange, but there was chatter in between. Again, won't go through absolutely everything, but it's just kind of to show this one particular thing. So someone had asked or made a comment saying that they thought that Sandra Lean was in love with Luke Mitchell, and there was people sharing a video of Sandra being asked how close she was to Luke, with an odd response, which is very odd. I think it caught her off guard. It was a very odd response.
How close are you to Luke?
That's a strange question.
Regardless, a sidetrack with that. And they kind of brought up the idea that Sandra Lean was the person being accused of being in love with Luke Mitchell. But that was shot down by Mr. Forbes. Ron, you ask good questions, but you also make things up to smear. That is irony there, isn't it? Corinne Mitchell doesn't speak to Sandra Lane. Yeah, Corinne Mitchell doesn't speak to Sandra Lane. Like Sandra Lane and Sharon now, they all fall out, so that's lies are spreading. So Scott Forbes is saying there's no kind of, contact between Luke's mum and the advocate for his freedom, which also seems strange. Scott would go on to say a couple of other things, in terms of the group saying that people get bullied in the group and telling them that they all need a good shake. He doesn't even get involved in groups or any of these things itself. Might speculate something about that, to be fair. He actually also said that he thought that Sandra should take a step back, continue campaigning, and leave the rest to the others. The rest to the others, I mean, I don't know who he thinks that could do the job. Well, I know who he thinks is the person who can save the day, so to speak. But I don't think anyone else, including Sandra Lane, believes that's the case. To be honest, let's take a little detour into a part of town we haven't really been to so far, and let's go to Speculation Station here. For me, that doesn't seem like there's much communication between Sandra Lane and Corinne Mitchell, as stated by Scott Forbes. But then, what's the relationship like between Scott Forbes and Sandra Lane when he's willing to, let's be honest, he just chucked her under the bus. Like, that's a very... The thing is, this is to out two people who he thinks are doing harm to Luke Mitchell's case. And by outing them, he then goes on to make comments about Corinne Mitchell, Luke's mum, and Sandra Lane, his cohort, for want of a better word. I don't know what word we use. One example I just want to kind of throw in at the end here. He did say that the two names here, Anna and Sharon, are making personal concerted attacks on me. Now I'm aware of it, I'll be attacking back, I assure you. Which again, I'd just like to point out, for someone who's supposed to be a legal professional, that's not the way you should be acting online. That's definitely, absolutely not. It's a threat and it's troll-like behaviour. Not only that, but given the fact that Mr. Forbes had actually tried to dox one of those people, I find it very strange that he is then saying they're making personal attacks when he doxed them. But makes sense out of that. Makes some sense out of that. That's a very odd kind of way going about outing two people who've split from the group. I honestly don't know why or how Sandra got pulled into Scott's rant, but there you go. So in his own words, I'd love to hear Sandra Lane's take on this. She doesn't speak to Corinne Mitchell, and they've fallen out, or they've fallen out in the past. When did that happen? Whilst we're in Speculation Station, is there really a relationship between Scott Forbes and Sandra Lane, or was that done for a little PR so they could both line their pockets? So, that's that. I had to put that in there. As I say, it's not really about, it kind of is about his unprofessional kind of manner online, because, again, that's not how a lawyer should be acting. Absolutely 100% not. And if you believe that and you're defending that, then you're one of the angry typers. But the Corinne Mitchell and Sorry, getting all these names.
You could do so. You want.
Now, Sandra and Corinne were also accused of controlling who visited Luke by all the ilk. It seems very strange that rather than answer to the lies that have been told and now proven thanks to transcripts, it's the personal attacks. Now, we all remember Scott's quote, don't we? About attacking someone. We all remember that one. It's in his book. Let's put it up on the screen for a little bit of context there. There's the famous quote from Scott Forbes. So, as again, his projection. We just like to say that word. I always remember that in the early podcasts that I watched. Someone explain this to me. This is where we're again, speculation station, but someone explain this to me. Why did that happen? And how can I put it? Let's just put it in a plain and simple, and we'll have to allow ourselves a little swear. What the fuck is he playing at?
Why you do that, man? Why you do that, man? How you do that, man?
There we go then. The confessions, which don't make sense. The three people telling two different stories. We'll go, to kind of go back on that again. The explanation at the very end with Sandra Lean and talking about two different confessions. We can, I think, say that the first paragraph and within that chat, we're talking about the one that she's talking about on Jibber Jabber. The psychotic criminal not connected to the family. They have to say the second one, she must be talking about the Joseph Jones, and she says that there's no credible, otherwise, she's been shown nothing. So I don't know where that one comes from in Scott Forbes' mind, but there we go. At the end of the day, we see Scott Forbes' own words. They don't seem to agree on a law, and people don't seem to be as close as they have said in the past, especially on Mr. English's podcast. Could that be a little short? Spoilers. So that was an interesting little one, but the confessions are the same. I think we can kind of put that to bed as just more nonsense from the people that have already been proven to talk nonsense by us and by others. So, in fact, actually, that's a good little plug. So I'll put a little clip of another channel's video in here.
When Channel 5 aired the programme in a small town, I wasn't told, somebody else was told, right, that they were destroying all the equipment. Or the...
How did you find that? Was it a secret?
A police person.
Was it?
And then, maybe 18 months ago, the police person phones me. Scott, can I have a cup of coffee? I certainly I was shocked. I said, well, first I was thinking she's telling the truth. They destroyed it.
And I will put the link in the description below so you can have a look at it all and have a look through it. That's another angle as well, where it seems the communication between Scott Forbes and what seems to be on the face of it, Sandra Lean, doesn't seem to be very good, involving the destruction of evidence. The fact that someone had to go to Scott a year and a bit after it looks like Sandra was informed. Now, there is something else with that, and I want to look into that a wee bit more, because the timeline there is suspect, I think, is the easiest way I can put it. There's a very suspect timeline, so I want to go back to that one and have a little look at that in terms of when the other person would have found. Watch the video, guys, watch the video. But in terms of when the other person was told, we'll have a wee look at the timeline there. But sidetrack from that. That is another kind of example. These people don't seem to be telling the truth in terms of how this is working and how these relationships work. Again, shorts. But yes, what do you guys think of the confession stories and how do they not match up? Why is it? And by the way, can we just cover one thing here? To go into a police station as someone who is known to suffer from psychosis, admit to a murder, and for the police to then say, "Oh, don't be silly, go away."
What?
How? That's not... I mean, does anybody take that seriously? Does anybody actually think that that's the kind of thing that the police would do? I do, honestly, I know this has got to sound truly condescending, but I feel sorry for you if you think that is true. And if you do, I've got a bridge for sale as well. Inbox me. So what do you guys think of the confession? I think that is absolute nonsense. Can we put it to bed? And why? The other thing I would ask is, with Corinne Mitchell, that has to, you would think either someone's advised her poorly or that's a lie. Now, who advised her poorly? Was it Scott Forbes? Was it Sandra Lean? Could it be Sandra Lean if they don't talk? Is Scott Forbes telling the truth about that? Someone has to be lying somewhere, surely. They can't all be telling the truth. And yes, the kind of the doxing, the behaviour online, all the rest. What do you think about that? I know a lot of you guys don't follow us on X, or maybe you're not on X, so you won't see all that kind of stuff. But yeah, leave us a little comment. What was he playing at? Why are we? Is this just a full-scale civil war now?
Enemy spotted.
Are we going to have like factions? Is it going to be like that? Is it South Park episode with the atheists and the beavers and whatever it was? Don't put that energy out there, considering the Lord of the Flies reference kind of blew up in your face last time. Let me know what you think, guys. Yes, absolutely, and let's get this wrapped up. Struggling to hold back a childish laugh there, I do apologise. So, yes, to wrap this all up, I hope you guys, as I say, have a cracking end to your year, or had a cracking end to your year, depending on when you get to this. We will have one more subject coming up, which, if we play a little video, you will know.
And she was getting followed by what they call
Stocky Man.
Stocky Man.
Stocky Man. So it's
Stocky Man. Stocky Man. Right?
the Stocky Man.
Stocky Man.
Stocky guy.
Stocky Man is well known, called the Stocky Man.
So look out for that, as well as upcoming videos, longer videos about transcripts. I will say in advance what we'll be looking at, so you might want to have a little look in, yourself, so you kind of know where we are. But of course that'll all be on screen as well, I suppose. However, thank you again, as always, for listening to this and any other video that we've done. Thank you for leaving your comments and your little sarcastic thumbs up as well, guys. Little sarcastic thumbs up, remember that. Please do consider subscribing if you would like to keep up with other subjects and the transcripts upcoming. Of course, you could follow us on X, and we are on Facebook, but I am absolutely terrible at social media, so I need to get kind of the finger out with that one. But we are there, I can assure you. There is a page there, more on X, because it just seems to be easier. And I have no time to keep up with multiple things. Anyway, sidetracked. Yes, as I say, leave a comment about what we have discussed or something absolutely random. Do not be a Derek, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.